Hello and welcome to the Automotive Support Group training session. You might notice that I've got a different top on from the rest of the training. This is because, thanks Tom, this is because we did experience a small technical error at the start of the recording and
I forgot to switch it on.
And thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed this training session as much as we enjoyed making it.
That's great. Well, everybody, my name's Tom Denton, and as you know, I've written a few textbooks, and one of the other things I do is a lot of consultancy work for the IMI, the Institute of the Motor Industry. So with apologies to Hayley for forgetting to switch the recording of this session on, I'm just going to do a very quick overview with a voiceover on the PowerPoint slides so I can include it as part of the recording of the training that we did just the other night. Anyway, I'm going to look at electric and hybrid vehicles, qualifications and IMI TechSafe. Now, where did all these qualifications and things come from in the first place? Well, the HSE, the Health and Safety Executive, several years ago now, quite a few years ago in fact, identified 4 different categories of work, and they range from number 1, which is valeting, sales and other low risk activities such as sales, like it says, and reception and delivery and different things like that, really basic things. Number 2 is emergency response, first responders, so obviously breakdown services, but also we're looking here at fire brigade, for example, and things like that. Might need to know about electric vehicles in these circumstances. Okay, so maintenance and repair of vehicles is, if you like, the main work that we do, isn't it? You know, it's working on the vehicles, but excluding the high voltage system. And then, of course, working on the high voltage vehicles, actually working on the high voltage system. Okay, so what happened was that the IMI, as the Sector Skills Council, took these different levels that had been created by the HSE and came up with a series of qualifications. Now, these have changed over the years a little bit, but broadly speaking, we still have the qualifications that have different levels now rather than just numbers. So at level 1, we have an award in electric and hybrid vehicle awareness. So that really is awareness, how to recognize an EV, you know, orange wires and the badge that's on it, knowing that it's very quiet when it's moving, and nice basic things like that, but nonetheless very important. Level 2, there's an award for emergency service and recovery personnel, so breakdown services, for example. Level 2 award here is the main award, if you like, for routine maintenance. So this is effectively working on the vehicle low voltage systems of a high voltage vehicle. Level 3 is actually working on the high voltage systems, and level 4 is repair and diagnosing those high voltage systems. Now, very quickly, a little bit more about each of these. The first one, as I said, is an awareness, how to plug it in to charge it, simple things like that. And here's a new little Citroen Amy, which is actually a quadricycle. I wonder if this is the future of EVs. I don't know, we'll see. Anyway, level 2 here is about working on the low voltage systems of a high voltage vehicle, but being aware of the dangers, of course. Level 3 is about working on the high voltage systems, but with it switched off. Level 4, and here's a Nissan Leaf battery we were working on the other day, is about working on high voltage systems with them switched on, because of course you can't simply switch off that battery. We're actually working with it live. So those are the 4 levels. Now, where are we and what's coming in the future? Well, it is predicted there'll be somewhere between 2.7 and 10.6 million EVs on the road in about 10 years' time. I mean, who knows? These are you know, estimates, of course, aren't they? But we do know that the numbers are going to increase considerably. The UK will need up to 70,000 qualified technicians at the top end of those figures, but even at the bottom end of those figures, we need a lot more. And there are currently about 5% of the technician workforce, which is about 13,000 people, qualified to work on electric vehicles. So there's some work to be done here, and some opportunities, of course, as time goes along. Now, what IMI TechSafe is all about. IMI TechSafe, and you'll guess here the homage, if you like, to Gas Safe. TechSafe is all about protecting both the owners of workshops and protecting the technicians, because I know we say it many times, you know, working on high voltage vehicles is dangerous. It's high voltage, but it's not really dangerous if you're trained and you know what you're doing, at the risk of stating the obvious. Anyway, why is it coming about? Well, you know, when vehicles came out in the early stages, even back in the 1990s, the Prius, wasn't it, was, I think, something like 130, 140 volts to start with. Then it went up a bit, 200 volts. Almost every electric vehicle out there now is at least 400 volts, 600 volts, 800 volts, one of the latest Porsches that's out there, and 1,000 volts plus is being researched by McLaren and other people. Higher the voltage, the lower the amount of current has to be delivered to deliver the same amount of power, so you get a lot less losses in the system, for example. So, you know, there are good reasons for going to higher voltages. High voltages, of course, become even more dangerous. Anyway, licensing. As we all know, there's no legal minimum standard or knowledge needed for an individual to operate a garage. Excuse me. And further, there's no specific legislation to protect technicians when working on high voltage. Or is there? In fact, one of the things we found out whilst researching IMI TechSafe is that the electricity at work regulations do actually apply to working on vehicles. So, for example, if you're working on a vehicle and you know, you're working for a boss in a garage on a vehicle and you are injured while working on it, haven't been trained properly or supervised properly, then the supervisor, or the boss if you like, is liable for what has gone wrong. You know, least of which is that you could potentially be injured. Now, getting everybody trained, of course, is far better if we don't get injured in the first place, but there are going to be, you know, court cases and things in the future. And interestingly, the insurance companies, as far as body shops are concerned, have started legislating or saying that, you know, the body shops have to have at least one TechSafe registered person. Anyway, what actually is TechSafe? It's developed by the IMI, and in order to become TechSafe registered and on a searchable register, you first of all have to achieve one of the qualifications or certifications, if you like, that I outlined earlier at level 2, level 3 or level 4. And once you've done that, you have to join the IMI as a member and join the professional register. Incidentally, any of you who are not IMI members, but you're an MOT tester, if you do the MOT annual training and assessment with the IMI, then you can get all sorts of incredibly good deals on membership at the same time, so something worth looking into. Anyway, in order to stay on the professional register that already exists, you already have to do, and it's hopefully something that you all agree with for the very reason that you're sat here doing it now, general CPD, continuing professional development, over a period of 3 years to maintain your professional registration. It's quite a normal thing in a lot of industries, isn't it? And that's what happens. The addition, as far as maintaining your TechSafe registration, is that you also have to complete agreed specific, more specific electric vehicle CPD. So a group, an advisory group, has got together from industry, and we've agreed, you know, what sort of CPD will have to be done. And the reasoning is to be able to stay up to date as much as is reasonably possible and maintain TechSafe registration. It keeps you up to date and keeps you safe. It also applies all the legal protections and everything else that might be necessary. So there we go, in summary. To be TechSafe registered on a register, and coming soon on the IMI site in a month or so, it will be a searchable register that you can be on, so people can look up for a safe technician, for example. You have to achieve a qualification, take on IMI membership and professional registration, then complete general CPD and specific EV CPD, and you retain the registration and tech safe. And it's a cyclical process, if you like. Okay, so that's pretty much it from me. A little bit quicker than I did it in real time when we were doing it live, but hopefully it gives you a bit of an overview. So I'll just have to finish on a final slide here, won't I, to do a blatant advert. Obviously, we've got my electric and hybrid vehicles book if you'd like to know more about that, and that's my website address if you'd like to.
As good as possible is our technical support. So we provide completely free and completely unlimited technical support to all of our members. And whenever I mention this to people, people say, how can you make it unlimited? And how can you make it completely unlimited? How can you make it free? You need to have a premium rate phone number. You need to have X amount of hours a month or something like this. But we work so hard with the EV community to have become a trusted brand that our reputation is so important. And when somebody goes onto the Hybrid website, they find the local garage, they book the car in, I see that as a fellow EV driver that I've made a personal recommendation to that driver, to that garage, and how can we not help that garage to do a good job if they need it. So the support is completely free, completely unlimited, and it always will be. That's a sort of fundamental thing to Hybrid membership. So we also find that the support gives garages the confidence to take jobs on that they might not otherwise, and then they end up not needing the support anyway because they've actually got their own expertise, their own experience, and having that support gives them a backup, and often they find that they might not even need it. So I'm sure you're wondering, in order to provide this support and write all this documentation, where we get our own expertise from. And so the firstly is from our own research and development. So in writing the guides that I showed you previously, we have to pull together a huge amount of information. Where we get that from depends on what the vehicle is. So some manufacturers are quite good. They'll let us buy information about how certain systems work, and we can take that information, understand it, and work it out. Others don't give us any documentation at all, and we literally have to take things apart. We have to find one end of a pipe and follow it through to find where the other pipe is and work out how the system works. We get live data and we work out what's going on, and we disconnect things and see what fault codes come up. And through this process, we end up with a lot of information, only some of which finds its way into the guide, but the rest of it is very carefully catalogued away so that in the event of getting a problem later on, we can refer back to it. So the limitation of using that for research and development is, of course, it means that you don't actually know what's going to go wrong. You can work out how the vehicle works and all the theory, but you don't necessarily know how to deal with the problems. So the second source of information we use is from our members. So although we're the ones helping the members, with the members giving us a constant source of broken vehicles that need diagnosing, this gives us a constant source of information we need to find out. So we go the extra mile to find out that information. And as well as getting that car fixed, it also means that adds to our knowledge bank so that we know we've got more information later on. So every time we get a support inquiry come in, it either goes one of two ways. So we've either got a problem that we can deal with straight away because we've already got the information to hand, we've seen it before. And if it's something we haven't seen before, we don't see that as a bad thing. We see that as an opportunity to learn something new, and we can go in depth in order to find that problem, and that adds to our overall knowledge that's all carefully catalogued as well. So the third source of information is from our development workshop. So I run another business called OVS Hybrid Electric, and as far as the customer is concerned, this is a normal garage that's listed on the Hybrid website that repairs electric cars. But the real purpose of this garage is actually to carry out experimental testing, and what we need for that is a constant source of broken cars. So we deliberately have a very cost-effective fixed price diagnostic charge that we don't necessarily make any money out of, but what it does do is it encourages broken cars with unusual problems to come into us, and then by repairing them, that adds to the Hybrid knowledge bank. And we do mechanical work as well, and that gets outsourced to the garage next door. But every car that comes in through the workshop is a potential source of known good waveforms, live data, and all sorts of information like that. So that's the other source of information. So the other thing about the technical support is how that then leads into our future training. So what we find is when we're being asked the same question over and over again, we think, well, there's obviously a gap within the knowledge here. And so what we can do is we can say, well, 5 people have asked the same thing, so there's obviously a gap there. So what we do is we then find out that thing, we put some really comprehensive answers together, and that then goes into the next newsletter, and then that educates the whole network. So basically, someone has a problem, we find out the answer, but then everybody, the answer is shared with everybody, so it sort of brings us all forward. So one unexpected avenue that we found doing this stuff is with component level repairs. So this isn't something I've never really got involved in ECU repairs before, but we've ended up sort of out of necessity getting involved in things like this. So this is a cell monitoring unit. So this is from a Peugeot Ion, and it's located in the battery pack, and it just measures the cell voltages and reports back to the central battery ECU over its own CAN network. So we had a problem with one of these, and it's only available as a whole battery pack for a cost of over £10,000. And I went through it with a fine-tooth comb, and I was able to find the problem, repair it, obviously save the customer a huge amount of money. Well, in reality, save the car from going to the scrapyard. And we've since seen that problem several times. We've also seen lots of other problems that we've been able to repair using similar things, and obviously we share that across the network. We've seen some unexpected things as well. So when we started getting into this, we realised that Renault, for example, their fault codes appear in 3 different formats, depending on what diagnostic tool you're using. So over a period of time, with hundreds of fault code reads, we were able to put together a database where we've got sort of translations between the fault codes you get on one tool and the fault codes you get on a different tool, so that when people ring up a support line, they say, well, I've got this fault code, we then know how that compares to other fault codes that we might have come across before in a different format. And with those notes, obviously, we keep notes on what faults we've found related to those fault codes, and what jobs they're on, so we can refer back and look to the in detail notes on each job and that sort of thing. So another problem we've identified in the process of setting up this network is the tools that you only use very occasionally. And I'm sure you've got some in your garages where you've basically bought a job for bought a tool just to do one job, or you might have not done a job because you didn't have the tool and it wasn't worth buying. So we've got around this problem by buying some of the tools collectively. So these tools are owned by Hevra, and then we can lend them out to members as and when fit. So obviously all the members have their own hand tools, diagnostic tools and that sort of thing. But for example, we've got a special mount that's for fitting a motor bearing on an Ampera that needs to be very carefully located. We've got a little dongle that forces a Nissan Leaf battery to learn the VIN of the car. That allows us to swap batteries between cars. And we buy new tools on an as and when basis if we see there's a need for it, and we think it's going to be useful across the network. We then purchase that tool. So
that's a great concept, Peter. It reminds me of like a library. So yes. Not only have you got a library for your data, but you've also got a library for physical tools. And I think that's an excellent concept. And I think one of the marks of a great presentation is that you've answered a lot of the questions that have been coming through as you've progressed through the presentation. So far, I've been monitoring this quite closely, but you've answered every single one.
Okay. Well, obviously, I'm happy to answer any more questions at the end, but hopefully I'll answer as many as possible during the presentation. So thank you. But the way it works is each Hevra member pays a small monthly fee for their membership, and obviously this allows us to provide the support and carry out the necessary research for the newsletters, vehicle guides, and paying for the special tools that I talked about. This money we can also put towards marketing. So, for example, we have a stand at Fully Charged Live, which is a huge event for electric vehicle owners. We speak to thousands of drivers there. And our cost for us to attend that show is over £4,000. But again, by bringing together the power of all these garages across the country, we can justify doing that, which you could never justify as a garage on your own. We can speak to thousands of EV drivers, and obviously they can all go back to their own areas, and through the website they can find where their nearest garage is. So we now offer...
That's an excellent idea, Peter, and I think it really neatly hands us over to Matt at Cleevely EV, who will be able to explain more what it's like working at the coalface of this technology. And I'm hoping that some more questions are going to come through about Hybrid, and if you'll be able to answer them at the end, that would be amazing.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you, Peter. That was a really fascinating presentation. And I'd like to now introduce you to Matt Cleevely from Cleevely EV. And he's going to be talking to us about his workshop, which specialises in this technology. Okay, over to you, Matt.
Thanks, Hayley, and thank you, everyone. And it's nice to be invited to come and do this. Mine's mainly a slideshow, so I apologise to everyone who's on Apple who seems to be having technical problems tonight. But it is fairly heavily based on slides. So if you bear with me, I will get the presentation up and share. Present. Right, so yes, so let's get involved. So this is me, and thank you very much to Pete, who likes to eat brake pads, for the great presentation about Hybrid before. So we're in a climate emergency situation, so I'm not a tree hugger, but we as a trade need to think long term about the effects of emissions, especially in towns and cities. Coupled with wanting to learn about the latest technology and wanting to keep my three-generation family business going, I wanted to look into EV. So this is my house. The array on the left was the first solar array I put on it 11 years ago. It was 2 kilowatts, and it paid for itself a few years ago. So I added the array on the right and on the rear of my house an extra 2.7 kilowatts about 4 years ago, along with battery storage and smart energy tariffs and rainwater harvesting. We wanted to reduce our own personal carbon footprint as much as possible. We chose an EV because school run for my wife is a 2-mile round trip. It was perfect technology, and my mechanical sympathy just wasn't fair on her petrol Fiesta at the time to be doing a couple of miles and never getting warm. So the grey Leaf that you see on the driveway there just does local mileage for our family. But as soon as we got it, I absolutely loved driving it and completely fell in love with the way that EVs drive. I could personally learn from it. And so after doing a qualification as a master tech, I wanted another professional challenge. I also noticed my mental health was suffering just doing the same thing day in, day out. And I needed something else to stimulate my brain. So 4 years ago, this was my family business. I was handed the reins of it. My grandfather started it. There's probably a similar story with quite a lot of the people that are listening to this now. We were outgrowing our original site, though, getting more and more popular. So I wanted to introduce EVs, and I looked for somewhere bigger where we could work from. We had a terrible experience buying the Nissan Leaf that we had. So just the main dealers not knowing the single thing about EV. So I decided that I wanted to create somewhere that was special for EV owners and my combustion engine customers to come and visit. And it was a real special workshop. So for a while we ran the 2 sites, but I invested in this 4,000 square foot workshop that we rent. And now we've moved to both. We're all at the same site. And so how did I start getting into EV? Because after all, this is what it's about tonight. So what I've learned is EV owners are currently a slightly different breed. They're early adopters, and they need to trust the garage. They need to be shown that they aren't being ripped off. They also know a lot about their cars, and they can get pretty geeky with them. Social media is key for us as a business, and we've attended lots of EV meets and events. So this one at Ace Cafe, it was just an EV meet, and we drove from Cheltenham over to London to go and chat to some of the guys that were EV owners, and we've done dozens and dozens of these types of events. Being interested is key. Being interested in EVs is key. EVs, they do have less work to do on them than a combustion engine vehicle, so volume was the key to a busy workshop, and that's why I went about just infiltrating the EV community, if you like, just so I could get my name out there. Also, we did some local promotion, so this is outside Cheltenham Town Hall, so with pride of place and lots of passing traffic, we were doing EV educational talks and events, just trying to sell cars and promote electric vehicle purchases throughout our town as well. And finally, we've done some owners group meetings when everyone was allowed to meet, that is, just to get people inside our workshop and realize that we're good, honest people and that we are interested in it. So as a garage, what do you need to set up or buy to work and operate as an EV specialist garage? Well, Hevra membership does ask for a charging point to be on site. That can be a 3-pin plug, but it's better to have a charging point. You can see it here at the back behind our courtesy car. It's also, having a charging point is a good way of meeting potential customers, offering charging to the public. So if someone gets stuck, they plug into your machine and you've got them captive for half hour, however long they need to be there. We also have the EV courtesy car that you can see here. It's a good talking point and a good tool getting our customers to drive EV without realizing they're being slightly brainwashed into making a different car decision. Once you've driven an EV, you rarely go back. So the key thing is not to spend a fortune on insulated tools and have this, that, and the other of insulated. Is not necessary. So yes, so just a commercially available toolkit, including safety banners, signage, and hooks are a must. A decent multimeter and some insulated tools are needed when things start getting really involved. A tool I couldn't be without in my garage is we've got an electric forklift, and you'll see why later. But it came in as a repair, so it came in with no voltage and a knackered battery. It gave me the opportunity to test on my skills. So after adding 50 litres of water to a lead acid battery, I charged the cells in series, as I only had a 12-volt charger at the time, and recovered the battery to 80 volts. Now we keep it charged and use it every other day. I also couldn't be without my battery table. So this is an expensive bit of kit. It's £2,000, but for removing batteries, it's proved a great investment, especially if the batteries are being worked on and going back in the same place, because the table can be positioned under the car, so you just drop it down, work on it at a decent, comfortable height to work on, and then jack it back up again. Here's the battery table lowered, and last year I added a battery cell charger so that we could rebalance or charge up battery cells that were going into complete packs. Anything over sort of 50 millivolts across a pack for an individual cell can cause problems. So everyone's probably dying to know how busy are we, and it was a question that was raised during one of the talks earlier, that you're just not busy enough as in seeing enough EVs. But so as owners and users, we've gained credibility within the community, and we attract Tesla owners from across the UK. It's not unusual for customers to travel from Scotland for a service. And some of the smaller range EVs also come from far and wide to us. We've seen EV work grow from around 10% of our daily workload to 40 to 50% of workload in the last 18 months. It's not unusual to have 4 or 5 Tesla a day. What kind of jobs are we doing? That's going to be a question on everyone's lips. So on top of EV servicing and MOT testing, we're doing air conditioning work. Zoe's especially are quite susceptible to aircon compressors breaking. We do a lot of brake work. So due to regenerative braking, there's less physical braking done on an EV and more energy recovery. So that means the brakes are prone to seizing and corrosion, as we can see from this slide, where the pads have just hardly been touched on the discs. We're doing jobs like Tesla door handles. So this here, so Tesla door handles on the Model S, they come out when you go near the car, and they can go faulty in several different ways. We actually now stock the drive gear that you can see in the picture in between my gloved fingers. And we're also replacing those built-in micro switches on some of the earlier door handles, and they could be a bit awkward, but they're a nice job to do in the end. Human error can lead to broken bits of plastic on charge point sockets, and so the charge point socket you can see on the left is from a leaf that had a faulty cable melt into it, so I had to replace the socket. Obviously, you're contacting the high voltage then, so you need to know what you're doing. And the one on the right is from a Tesla. There's a bit of a hand-fisted driver wanting to plug it in and charge it, and actually cracked the black plastic sheathing around it. So we had to immobilize the high voltage system, disconnect it all, and replace the charging pins there. We also see cables for repair. Understanding the charging hardware is important, so knowing how the cables work and how the chargers work, and knowing the difference between it potentially being a car fault or a charger fault is quite key, and that's sort of part of being interested and being involved in the whole world of EV. And then we get into the interesting jobs. So here's an installation fault on a high voltage vehicle, and that can lead to interesting discoveries. This Outlander had physical damage to the battery casing, which required us to remove the pack and remove all of the moisture within the pack, because water and electrics don't mix. One thing I haven't mentioned is how important it is to understand the correct safety procedures involved with working with high voltage. The training is a must, and things like TechSafe and IMI qualifications they're great, and you just, as been reiterated tonight, just to go on the courses and go through it. And we understand that as garages, and I say we as Hevra, but we want to be able to help other garages learn as much and carry out as the kind of repairs that we're doing as well. This stuff can kill you. So these packs are 385, 400 volts. I did have a nice job with a Tesla owner ringing me up one day and asked if I was prepared to strip down his 1-year-old Performance Model 3, the rear drive motor, and fit a Quaife limited slip diff in it. So it was one of the oiliest jobs I'd done for a while, but it was also very satisfying. And the motor and drive assembly were a pleasure to work on and surprisingly easy to get out. So that was quite a nice job to get involved with. This one is a 24 kilowatt hour Leaf battery. It kept going into limp mode with a non-restart being attributed to an insulation leak on the high voltage. So a conversation and some data obtained from Hevra meant I knew where and how to start testing, with tests revealing the fault was within the pack, but I didn't know where. I took the pack out, narrowed down the insulation leak to a bank of cells, and then down to a module, sourcing a used module and charging it up, as you saw with my charger earlier, to match the voltage of the other modules that were healthy, and then fitted it, build it all back up again, and get it back into the car. Main dealers won't touch this kind of work. So it's ideal for customer retention. A very happy customer. They went straight on to the owners forum then, and was blabbing about it, and we got lots of inquiries off the back of that, lots of coverage, and I don't have to promote myself on the group. Just doing things like this and putting it out on Twitter gets lots of coverage. So this was an 8-year-old car that was back on the road without having to replace a whole battery pack. Reasonable cost to repair, and nice and easy. No oily bits, no carbon anywhere, just nuts and bolts. And yes, a lot of danger potential with voltage, but nice and easy to do. And we had a similar one last week. So there was a dying cell on a 40 kilowatt hour taxi Nissan Leaf. There were no fault codes. It wasn't complaining about it on the car, but the owner had noticed a loss of range and an inaccuracy on the range meter. So it was difficult for him to use it as a taxi. This car had actually done 120,000 miles and was rapid charged 4 times a day. So this app, so this isn't off any diagnostic equipment, this is only an app available to read via the DL16 plug.
Matty, are you finding that more motorists with EV or hybrid technology are more informed than their ICE counterparts?
Oh, yes. And that was what I mean. Yeah, these guys are seriously geeky.
Workshop process, do you think?
What was that?
Does this help the workshop process?
50-50. for instance, I swapped a battery pack out on a Leaf this week and had an email from a guy just going into so much detail where he'd analysed his range back, his efficiency, worked out potential capacity of the pack, and was questioning
that does
whether the
sound
pack
like a challenge.
exactly. Yeah, so
cross-reference over to hybrid owners, or is this something that is more with pure EVs?
More with pure EVs. Hybrids are only a stepping stone, so anyone who is interested in
technology.
Exactly that, yeah. And what we're seeing has skipped the whole gateway part of it. We don't see that many hybrids.
You don't see that many hybrids. That was going to be my next question. Thank you so much for such a fantastic presentation. There are a couple of questions that have been coming through thick and fast. Tesla in particular seem to be of interest. They do have a reputation for not wanting anybody outside of their group to work on their cars. And that's something I'd like to explore with you at the end of the session, if that would be okay.
Yes, of course. Yeah, no problem at all. Let me turn my camera back on.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I know I'm very excited about having a really nice, clean workshop with absolutely no diesels in it, because I do get fed up of getting absolutely filthy in the shop floor.
Definitely.
This leads us on, talking about oil and things like that. This leads us on to Marc, who is joining us from Liqui Moly, and he is joining us from Germany tonight. So thank you so much, Marc, for your effort to be here. And I'd like to hand over with no further ado to him.
Okay.
Oh, good. I was about to ask, is Marc there?
Yeah, I'm here. Marc. I'm here. Okay. So I first want to welcome you all as well in the name of Liqui Moly. I join you today from the cold Germany, small city near Stuttgart, and we are based. So first, a little bit about Liqui Moly. We are a company with nearly over 1,000 employees till now. And we're not working, we specialize into engine oils and additives and so on. But we're not only doing engine oils and additives, we have a product assortment about over 4,000 products. So we heard a lot about these new technologies, electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles, and now we want to talk about something more familiar, things in the workshop. So the electric vehicles and the hybrid cars as well, is a huge part on the market. So, and they're still using lubricants as well. So it's a combined system out of a combustion engine and an electrical controlling unit, for example. And I was asked to tell you a little bit about lubricants used in hybrid cars. So I'll just want to share my screen. Hopefully it worked. Yes, I think it worked. So Liqui Moly engine oils for hybrid cars. Yes, engine oils and hybrid cars. So it's not that difficult as it sounds. It's still in combustion engine, but some things changed in these hybrid cars. So a normal combustion engine combined with an electric one. So what has changed? You got more cold start, so different loaded. So the engine is not every time getting to operating temperature. And that can affect the engine oil and on a difficult way or in a different way because of longer time in the engine when it's not driving. So the engine oil stays longer in the system because it's getting that up to operating temperature. Can be that you get some water inside the system, sometimes as well a little bit fuel into your oil system, and that makes the oil or oil a little bit faster. So what is significant or what's important for the engine oils used in hybrid cars, they have to have a good protection against oxidation, a good protection against aging of the fuel, and
it has to protect the whole system as good as possible, because it can be that the combustion engine doesn't run for a certain period of time, and often started up in cold condition, getting out, starting up in cold condition, and therefore you have to have an engine oil which protects your engine in a very, very good way. So an engine oil is not engine oil, we're talking about lubricants, but an engine oil is not only a lubricant. An engine oil is getting more and more a spare part. So
Mark,
yeah.
sorry to interrupt, Mark. We seem to be looking at your speaker notes screen rather than the full PowerPoint slide. I don't know if you've got two screens on your computer and share
okay.
just one. I mean, we can see you okay, but
so
Mark,
okay.
Mark, can you hear me?
Yes. So does it work now? Do you see now the correct screen?
That's it. Well done.
That's it. Okay. Okay. So now you have hopefully see the correct screen. So where have I stopped? So the engine oil is not only an engine oil. The engine oil is getting more and more spare parts. You see it on the market. That mostly every manufacturer does its own thing. So we get not less engine oils on the market. It's getting more and more and more and more, because everyone wants to do wants to make their own money, yes, as well, and then wants to get more and more specified to one car and not to a certain group of cars. So it's getting less of these multi-purpose oils, which have a lot of different manufacturers' approvals on it. So we're getting rid of these ones and getting back to more specialized engine oils, especially as well for these hybrid cars. What is the difference between these engine oils? So all are going with these normal standard classifications. So these standard classifications of engine oils is the API, the SAE, American Petroleum Institute, the Society of Automotive Engineers, and the European Automotive Manufacturers Association. So I think you all heard about them. These are standard classification where these manufacturer approvals later on are based on. So till now, there's no big impact on the market specialized for hybrid cars. It's still a normal combustion engine inside, and the requirements are nearly the same as for normal cars. So that's the reason why till now no specialized hybrid car engine oils are on the market. So significant or more important for you is to stick to the requirements given by the manufacturers. So if they stick to the API, maybe these Asian American vehicles stick mostly to the API, the European ones to the ASEA, and some of these big automotive manufacturers does their own work. So they are doing own testing or their own approval. So they have their own testing in their manufacturer or in their as approved manufacturer, doing their own testing of the engine oil. So what we have to do, we have to get an engine oil and different kind of additive package, leave it to the manufacturer, they prove it, and after that they give us a certificate to say, yes, you have passed the test, you are now completely approved. So till now they're going on all with these standard classifications and the manufacturer approvals. Maybe during the year or the next years they're coming up maybe a new hybrid technologies on the market, and which isn't as well combustion engines because it's a big part of in the market, but maybe there changes some on the lubrication standards. But to now we can only see that we're going back from these long life changing intervals for hybrid cars. Normally they're going back between 15 and 25,000 kilometers per year, or 15,000 kilometers, or once a year, or from Mercedes-Benz, for example, they have this longer interval from 25,000 kilometers or every second year in this way. So we have different kind of manufacturers which do in their own approvals, and I want to give you some examples. What you see that the most of the hybrid cars using these classifications or these approvals, which we are all known from normal diesel engines or from normal gasoline engines. You see here a Mercedes-Benz B-Class 250E, so it's a hybrid car, 4-stroke hybrid car, and you see these are normal specifications which we have on diesel cars. So 229.52 is a specification for ash-reduced oil for diesel engine with an exhaust after treatment, for example. And you see as well these 2-stroke, not only for the diesel, for brand new gasoline cars as well. So you see this car, this hybrid electrical car or hybrid car combined system uses as well these approvals or these standard of an engine oil. As well, when we take a look at the C-Class, as well, petrol electrical engine, and you see we got as well the same classifications like we have on this B-Class. For example, these ones with one number in the back are specification for gasolines, and these for new gasoline vehicles, especially with particle filter, with the GPF gasoline particle filter, or diesel engines with a DPF diesel particle filter. So you see, it's quite the same oils using for hybrid cars as for normal combustion engine cars, because there's no other technology of the engine what's inside. It's just a longer time of period. The engine oil leaves in the engine without being circulated. But these new engine oils, I told you, an engine oil is more and more, it's getting more and more spare parts. So these are, there are high quality or high effective chemical parts inside, which can protect your engine even under these low viscosities. You see 0W20, but we're going down and down and down with the viscosity. So in former times we said, so 10W40 oil gives us the best lubrication, because the thicker the oil, the better is your lubrication. But this is wrong thinking at the time, because we're getting more and more chemicals inside the oils, which give the oil back these stickiness to the surface, this high viscosity index, that the lubrication is over longer temperature or longer period of time the same, so that it gives your system a very good lubrication as well. So we got as well these hybrid logos on our engine oils. So that's only visible for the customers, that they see, yes, these engine oils are approved as well on these little bit other requirements of a hybrid car. But this badge gives you information that your engine oil, your engine is good covered or good maintained and good lubricated by these engine oils. As I said before, stick to the requirements given by the manufacturers to assign the correct oil for your car's engine as well for these hybrid cars. I got another one we have seen before. These at the first presenter, we seen these GTE engine from the Volkswagen Golf, for example, or from the Volkswagen Passat 1.4 liter GTI. And you see they're not going down with these viscosities. So they say only use the 500-200 Volkswagen approval with the 5W40 viscosity grade. As well, yes, the newest ones are going back down with the viscosity, but I just want to show you the different kinds of viscosities we have. That is not only low viscosity, some of them going again, or going as well with a higher viscosity engine oils. Then we're taking a look at some of the most known hybrid or electric cars. So it's the Toyota Prius. We have as well a combined system, and you see we're going down to 0W16 viscosity. We got as well engine oils for these, and they go with the newest API standard. So the newest API is the API SP, the API S for spark ignition cars, and it's going up, the second letter going up in the alphabet, and the upper one is backward compatible on the one below. So you can use an API SP oil completely backward compatible to an API SN+. So because the API SP covers these API SN+, and the RC is just resource concerning for reduce fuel consumption, be more economical, for example. So that's the thing we have for hybrid cars as well. So we have the electrical part to drive it more and more green, and that's the reason why most of the manufacturers are going down with the viscosities, because reducing, because fuel economy, reducing emissions. Engine requires less power to circulate the engine, and the less power the engine needs to circulate, the less fuel it needs, and the less emission it will get out of the exhaust gases. So that's a big part. And you've seen a little bit of timeline from 20W50, 5W30. This was a big impact on the market to say, oh, 5W30, how can this lubricate my engine? So you see in 0W16, but the future says we're going down to between 0W16 and 0W8, and we see 0W8 is nearly like water. So there is a lot of chemical additive packages inside what is keeping your lubrication upright in the engine, so that the lubrication film is not going away, and that we still got a good lubrication inside the engine, even if these high emission standards we now get in, for example, in the European Union or in America as well, or in the UK, the emission standards getting more and more, or getting harder and harder. So the different manufacturers have to fight again and to keep the emission standards. That's the reason why these engine oils are getting thinner and thinner. Just one point I want to talk about a little bit is it's not only the engine oil inside the engine what can or we should protect against aging. So a big impact is as well the fuel inside the engine. So the fuel lasts a lot time longer inside your fuel tank. So the gasoline engines are often used when being cold. I've said it as well for the engine oils. Start stopping, the fuel remains long in the tank, and that's a big part why we invented such high as well additives to protect your fuel system against aging, against the increase of corrosion inside, and against the buildup of deposits. Why corrosion? So every fuel or gasoline fuel contains up to 5% or a little bit more of water. So when it lasts long in the engine or in the fuel tank, it can start to corrode inside the engine. That's the way why we should protect the fuel system as well. It can be preventive use or added at every filling. So where do you get the information? So about engine oils, we can talk about days, because they've got a lot of different engine, a lot of different technologies. But we want not to leave the customers alone. We want to give an special service. So what makes us what sets us a little apart from the other oil manufacturers? So we got a lot of services behind, free of cost. You don't have to have a membership or something else. We're again in Germany a lot of specialists where you can call every day from 8 to 4. For example, to ask every questions. You can contact us through doing emails to get your question answered about every engine oil, about problems you have, maybe as well with your fuel injection system. And to get the correct engine oil, we got our oil guide online, which makes it easier for you to assign the oil. We got it on desktop, we got it app, and we got as well the printed paper version where you can see insert your license plate or search manually, and then you can have a list which engine oil you should use or which oil or lubricant you should use for which part of your engine. So the engine, your power steering, for example, automatic transmission, and so on. So in summary, the engine oils are getting more and more specific, as well transmission oils as well, and we're getting more and more, chemically more and more powerful of this. The engines or the lubricants getting more and more powerful. So that's the reason why it is very important to get the correct engine oil for your specific engine.
That is a really great point, Mark, and I think highlighting that your app is functional over every platform and every device is really useful, as we've learned here tonight. If it can be quite awkward if there isn't the functionality on one operating system or another. So it really is nice to see that it's accessible to everybody, and also that's then backed up for the consumer as well. The questions are coming in thick and fast, and I can see Jeremy is already on point, and he's answering a lot of the technical questions with regards to things like base stock and if it's recycled oil or virgin oil that's used. He's already addressed that. There's a couple of other questions that are coming in through from the chat box, asking questions about things like warranty. A lot of this technology is very new. Will using these products risk taking a vehicle out of warranty or anything like that?
So that's the point I said. Also, we have a huge assortment of engine oils which are approved by the manufacturers. So as well, when it goes with the API or the ASEA or the ELSAC, for example, we are fully approved, and we get fully approved engine oils as well for Mercedes-Benz, for Volkswagen, Jaguar, Land Rover, Volvo, and so on. So when you get a fully approved engine oil, you get not problems with the loss of warranty, for example.
That's really reassuring to hear. And I can see Jeremy has also popped in about the storage solutions. Got to say, I am quite excited about a new oil cabinet. It does look like a really innovative way to store all of this oil, because as a couple of people have mentioned within the chat box, it's now getting so problematic storing all types of oil, and with this technology the oils will be getting more and more specific. We are leaning more to just-in-time stock rather than keeping all of this within our own workshops. So we're now getting to the end of the session.